Hi guys, welcome to Event Pros Let's Talk. I am super excited today about our segment. I'm here at Party Rentals Ltd and it is like a candy store for designers. It's just amazing the creativity that comes through this space, all of the great items that they have as far as rental pieces, utensils, linens, and chairs, and all this really unique stuff. And I wanted to show you guys the behind the scenes of what really happens at a rental company, and all the great resources that come from here. As an event designer, it is essential for you to know all of these details. As a planner, what you need to know as a planner when you walk into a rental company and you're working with your clients, this is going to be key information that you're going to need so that you can be effective in your planning process and effective in bringing your designs to life. So we are here at the showroom, and I'm going to introduce to you my favorite person here that I love to work with when I come here is Debbie. And so come on, let's work. Hi Debbie!
Hi, how are you? Welcome to Party Rental. Thanks for coming.
Of course. I wanted to show everybody, this wonderful showroom that Party Rentals has here, and all the great stuff that happens, behind the scenes about, renting, your furniture, and, all the accessories that go along with, bringing the design to life. And here we are.
Okay, well, welcome. So glad you came.
Thank you.
And come on in.
Awesome.
Let's see our home away from home.
Yes. I love Party Rental's story. Can you tell me the story? Tell us the story.
Sure. Well, Party Rental is the true American success story. It started about 47 years ago now, and it was a husband and wife that she was a teacher and just decided she didn't want to do that anymore, and basically bought a business in New Jersey where they would rent, this really dates us, champagne fountains and glassware for proms. So they bought this really small business, and it was actually in their garage in Englewood, New Jersey. And they ran that for a couple of years, and then they started seeing the need, and one thing led to another, and then the husband and wife team started going to New York City. And back then, this is almost 50 years ago, there weren't really caterers as we know them now, like off-prem caterers. There was only one in New York City, and his name was Donald Bruce White. And Michael, who was one of the owner of the couple, went and approached them and said, "You only use white china. Wouldn't you be interested in using something a little fancier?" And so he thought about it. He said, "Well, what do you have?" And he said, "I'll bring whatever you want." And so that was the beginning of Party Rental. And so he brought in specialty china just for him, and he started doing all these parties on Park Avenue, and the rest is history. And 47 years later, we have 14 showrooms. We're in 12 states and up and down the Eastern Seaboard.
Yes, I love that. The pink
hippo, right? Nobody forgets. Our name is so generic that when I meet people, they go, "What? Party ho?" And then as soon as I show them the hippo butt, they're like, I sat behind that truck. I know who you are. So it is really.
I love that story.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
So tell me, a little bit about where the company has, when it first started to now, what changes you've seen within the industry that makes such a significant difference with how we're moving towards design.
Well, I've been with Party Rental 20 years, so I've seen, a pretty big change in the industry. It's become much more design oriented. I find that it follows the fashion industry very closely. There's a definite correlation between what happens on the runway and soon after what happens in weddings and bridal fashion and whatnot. And it now parlays down to tabletop. As you can see, just behind us, black flatware. If you said that 10 years ago, I'd say there's no way. Anyone's going to use black flatware. And now it's very chic. So that is, I would say that's the biggest change. It went from necessarily being very budget conscious or in a box where they thought they could only use white china and stainless or silver plate flatware to now anything goes.
So creative.
Yeah, very creative, very.
What are some of the trends that you see for 2019 that's happening this year?
I still see, we're getting away from geometric shapes, things like with very hard edges, like square plates, rectangle plates. I don't see a huge demand for that anymore. I see it more romantic. Definitely, the colors are still softer palettes. The blushes, the just champagnes, those are still in, especially where weddings are concerned. Again, textured cloths are still very, very in. I mean, we're always being asked. And as I showed you in that pattern before, it wasn't necessarily texture in terms of the fabric, but the pattern had lots of texture. So that's still really big. I think that's going to continue. And natural woods, like natural wood chairs, are still very hot. They're definitely getting away from the painted chair look, and the natural, the birch, the fruit wood, the walnut, that kind of thing.
Now, since you said chairs, something that I've seen is the chair covers that have like completely disappeared.
Yeah.
But some people still use those chair covers. What are some of your suggestions as far as the chair covers and all of that goes?
My biggest suggestion is don't use them. They always to me look like an ill-fitting bedspread. They just don't work. I think honestly, yes, I know it's more expensive to, rent a chair.
Right.
And I happen to be in the rental business, so of course I'm going to say that. But to rent a chair, the money you're going to put into a chair cover and a sash, you might as well spend a little bit extra. I'd rather see you take some of that money off the tabletop and put it towards a chair, because the chair really is almost a frame of the room, and it makes a very, very big impression. So chair covers to me always look sloppy. They just, to me, say a very inexpensive, budget-conscious wedding or event. So I'd much rather see either use nothing on the chair or rent a chair.
What are some things that you think a planner should know prior to coming in with their client?
I think it's really important to speak to them about a few things. One is, again, what we mentioned before, vision. That's really important, so we know where to kind of position them with regard to color, texture, with regard to tabletop, etc. The other thing, and I know this is oftentimes very difficult to pull out of them, is budget. Because often they don't want to share what their budget is, but I've always found, doing this for 20 years, people will say their budget's here when it's really here. So if you kind of go somewhere between this and this, you may have a shot. So that's really important, because it can be such a time waster if they don't give you any of those parameters. As you can see here, we have like 40 different types of china, and everything that runs from 80 cents a piece to $5.50 a piece. So that's a huge difference. And unless we have an idea of what their range is and what's most important to them, is it a tablecloth? Is it a glass that's, color that kind of sets the table up? What is it that is important to them? And then we'll put the dollars there, and then we can back into the rest of the tabletop. Otherwise, we can make a gorgeous table, but if I give you the pricing and they fall down, then we're going to come back and we're going to start from square one.
So when a planner wants to come in with their client, explain the process of how that works.
Well, generally they set up an appointment. Our showrooms are by appointment only, and we do that so that we can have one-on-one time. Otherwise, this showroom can get very noisy and a little hairy, so we try to just have two planners here at any given time. And really what they should go back to is have a general idea. Obviously they'll know location, clearly. If they have an idea of who their floral planner is, because that can take a big chunk of their budget. And if they have an idea of where they're gonna stay within for the florals, it will help us determine what they have in order to do the tabletop. The other thing that they want to, I'm sure they've decided, but should know who their caterer is, because that will certainly define budget, but it will also define, certain caterers have very specific ideas of how they want their plate presentation to look, what types of plate they use. Some caterer will absolutely not allow you to use anything but a white plate. So then it will predetermine where we go with the overall design. So those kind of things are important from a planner's perspective. Do their homework. Know who the players are for the event, what any special needs are, and I would highly recommend they have a discussion with the caterer before they come in here, so that we know what direction we're heading towards.
So how long do you think it takes for a planner, well, a planner should be in here with a client at one time?
Okay. Generally, I think part of it depends how far along they are on the planning process, but if a planner is just starting, I generally say an hour and a half is a good amount of time to set for an appointment. Again, any particulars, like I have a planner coming in this afternoon. She was great. She sent me her Google Doc with some images of what the bride and groom are interested in, what their general feel is. So with that being said, I can be ready for them. So when they get here, at 5, I can have some tables set. I can pull some of the images that I saw or things that I think will work, and at least get the conversation started. And then with that being said, we can probably do an hour and a half. I've been here as long as 3 hours. And kind of ended up back at square one, and that's not ideal. So for the planner as well as us, I generally say an hour and a half if everybody does their homework ahead of time. 2 hours at the absolute most, because after that amount of time, people are burned out. Well, they can't make decisions. They get flustered. The other thing I want to point out is I generally tell planners I like to not show them more than 2 setups. So I give them a this or that based on what our conversation is, because I find if you start getting into 3, 4, 5 different setups, the confusion sets in and we get nowhere. It just becomes one big tabletop, and they can't even remember what they saw. It's totally overwhelming. So, and the planner knows their client best. I mean, some clients come in and they're very directed. There are other planners that come in and they know, they'll give me a heads up that, this bride or whomever does not have a clue. So if that's the case, I will try to keep them down, like I said, to 2 different looks and cut it so that...
So sending you all that information prior is important to you. It helps. It helps.
Yeah. It absolutely helps, and it also forces you or the planner to have that conversation with their client before they get here, because otherwise we're really starting from square one, and it could be like a therapy session before we even get to color and what they want to do for tabletop.
Yep.
Yep.
So any
the other thing I would like to point out, which I've seen over the years, is that oftentimes they want to bring, the future mother-in-law.
I was just gonna. That was my
mother, the maid of honor, the sister, and I find
it becomes crazy.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
it becomes like an absolute zoo here. So it's really best if the planner can say to the bride and groom, you're welcome to come in. Perhaps bring one person, either your mom or your sister or your maid of honor, one person, because when there are more than that,
it becomes too much.
It's too much, and everybody has an opinion.
Yes.
And then you lose sight of them who, I always come back to this, it's your wedding.
Yeah.
What do you want? Because believe me, I've seen some strong-willed moms that it's not their wedding.
Well, it becomes their wedding.
It becomes their wedding.
They're living through.
Exactly.
So
They strong arm them to have what they want instead of what the couple wants. So that's
very
important.
That's
Yep.
That's exactly what I was gonna get to.
Yeah.
How does location affect the design pieces that we choose?
Very good question. It is important. If someone's doing an outdoor tented event versus a hotel, there are a lot of different variables. Budget. There's going to be a much larger budget for rentals, obviously in a tented event versus a hotel. Also, deliveries are impacted by that. Rain plans, all that kind of thing. Wind. If you're going to be in a tented and say you're going to be by the ocean, you're going to be in the Hamptons, and wind could be a huge factor. So you may want to lean more towards a farm table, or a table where you don't have the wind factor. Do we have wind clips? Yes, but they're not attractive, so I don't recommend. If that were the case, I would recommend something like our rattan fabric, which is a very heavy, it's an upholsterer grade fabric. It can hold a table very well and won't be affected, not nearly as badly as that. That has no weight to it. It would fly off the table in a minute. So those things, lighting, will make a big difference if you're doing a tented event versus an indoor event. So you may want to think about what you have on your tables. Glassware, glass will certainly pop. You can see the lighting in this room if you walked in, what this does to a room versus. So location is really important, and it should be a factor in determining color, design, and just overall look of the event.
What are good tips for when you're dealing with a plan A and a plan B as far as rain is concerned during outdoor events? Because I know especially living in New York, our weather is so unpredictable.
Correct.
And so, I've had some crazy situations where I would tell a client, we should plan for this, and they just refuse to hear it. They don't want to hear the plan B. And so, what are some things that, as a rental company that you've had to deal with, and how to use this?
Well, there's a few things. I think that's really important to consider that, especially for an outdoor location. You have to always figure, a rain plan. So generally, clients don't like to hear that they should have additional cocktail tables, or they should have, it's not gonna rain. Well, guess what? It just might. And then we're gonna go to plan B. What I've often done with clients, and it kind of makes them feel a little bit more at ease, is we can do a plan B, figure out all the items that are needed for the plan B. Not necessarily, we can tell them what that cost variable would be, and then they don't have to order it until, say, 48 or 72 hours before delivery.
Awesome.
So they don't have to take that pinch unless they absolutely have to, and then they'll know what the weather will be. But when they come to plan, I always highly recommend that they think about that and they have the choices and they have the plan B ready, so that it's not a scramble. Because the last thing anyone wants to worry about is the week of, to figure out what kind of tables we're going to use, what linens are going to be, on the cocktail hour or whatnot. And the other thing I always tell people is, they'll say to us, well, if it's an outdoor event, they can just come in and we can do the cocktail hour in the tent. And I always remind them that your tables will be trashed by the time dinner is going to be ready to be served. So that may not be your best idea.
Yeah.
So it always is very beneficial. And again, as I said, we don't require that they place this order, well ahead. They can kind of have that in their back pocket, ready if they need to use it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Debbie, for joining me today and allowing us to come into the showroom and see all this great stuff. Guys, I hope you have really learned a whole lot as far as the rental, side is concerned, and the great tips that Debbie shared with us today. And I can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye.